Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. Hey warriors, welcome back to another episode of Suburban Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, and all I know is that if you are looking for some inspiration and a mindset shift today, you have found it, my friends. My guest today is a powerhouse of inspiration. Literally, just being in her presence makes you feel energized and elevated. And she's going to share her story today and how she's making an impact on the world, truly, by starting the nonprofit, The Impact Center. With her extensive experience as a fierce advocate for young people and their families, Maria has devoted her personal and professional life to service learning and leadership development in teens. Since receiving her master's from Princeton University, yes, she's a smarty pants, Maria has worked in both educational and faith-based settings for over 30 years. She has exemplified a commitment to igniting in others an ethical engagement for the common good. I could not be more excited to welcome Maria Stroup. Hi, Maria.
Hello, Chrissy.
Oh, it's so good to have you here today. And I am thrilled that you are here to share your story. And I know that it's, not always easy to do that and to be courageous and vulnerable, but I am very humbled and excited that you are here today to do that with us. So thank you.
Well, it's truly my honor and pleasure. And I don't know who you were introducing, but I'm intrigued to find out who they are.
Oh my God, that's what I love about you. You're so funny. Okay, so we absolutely are going to get into this amazing nonprofit organization, the Impact Center, that you have created and all the good that it is doing. But first, I want to know a little bit more about you, about Maria, and sort of what led you, to the path of starting this amazing organization. So let's start out. Tell me about Maria.
How do you solve a problem like Maria?
Yeah. Exactly.
I think a lot of people have said that throughout my life in great ways. And I'm really excited because I believe that all of us are always creating our narrative by defining choices we make and by defining circumstances that make us. And so I love that the Impact Center, all the little chapters of my life have created a me that still wants to grow and become. And with that said, I'm not that single story. I'm many pieces and parts.
My gosh, you truly are. I mean, just meeting you for the first time and sitting down with you and hearing a little bit about you and a little bit about some of those parts, I have to be honest with you, like I just wanted to hear more. You have so many great stories to share, and I really think your path to, the work that you're doing now is a very unique one that has made you here. So I totally agree. And it is all part of our narrative, and every little step that we take about, our growth on this journey leads us to somewhere. And the wonderful thing is that, we're just creating a new story each and every day. So tell us about, what brought you maybe to this area? What brought you to really living a life of service?
Well, I came in great resistance to these last 3 chapters of my life. But I do, I want to start by saying I love, and Chrissy, I'm not just saying this, I love the idea of this as a warrior mindset.
Thank you.
I do. I really do, because I do not believe that anyone's narrative trumps another's. That all of us have stories that inform and take us to the places we are and the places we aren't. And we've all survived something. So those perspectives, those challenges can gift us in time with perspective and purpose. So in saying that, what brought me to this place are all these little pieces of resistance in my life in great ways. And with that said, I think that I came from a family. Well, I know I came from a family, I don't think. I came from a family that was not wealthy in the sense of how sometimes we define wealth, but we had everything we needed and not everything we wanted. But with that said, it gave me some important challenges and obstacles along the way that made me stronger and better. So my first thing that I'd say that I don't even know if I got to share with you in our initial conversation is something I wouldn't take out of my life that has led me to this mindset I have, this posture towards humanity, was being a childhood cancer survivor. And at 13, I realized that life has limits. And when you're in an age like adolescence, where, you're living in a moment and the moments seem endless, and then you get a huge semicolon like cancer, it can make you, shape you, challenge you, and hopefully change you in ways that you never dreamed or imagined. And I think that was a wide awake moment for me that allowed me to truly, truly pause and think about who I was and who I was not. So in that defining moment, I literally decided, after a few years of battling, that I needed to add some value to this world, that life had paused in a way that taught me a lot. And I would not have been honoring to that story if I did not live differently. So I think that's my one big important comma during a very crucial time, adolescence. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about this population of young people, knowing that there is purpose waiting in every single one of us. And in adolescence, I think that purpose gets overlooked when it should be claimed and given agency. And cancer gave me agency, and it shifted me in a way that I needed. I didn't want it, but I needed it.
Wow. I mean, so that is not something that you shared with me before. And I'm almost speechless, because in a way, everything makes sense to me now that you tell me that part of your story. And it already did make sense knowing your journey, but now it really makes sense, because you found your why, you found your purpose in a way that, you didn't want it to happen, like you said, but again, it's all part of our journey. And this is all part of the story of our lives, the fabric of our lives that weaves together. And we have to, at such a young age, I feel like in a similar way, my why with losing my mom when I was 20, I found that realization as well. I found that, I need to find what my purpose is. And when I do, and it has changed over the years for me, but when I am in it, I am living it. And every single day, I'm just driven to be the best version of me and to be better than I am today, tomorrow. But so it all makes sense to me that at this young age, you felt inspired to find purpose. But now you're doing it for that same age group, which I do think is having 3 teenagers myself, 3 teenage girls, and then, my son's almost a teenager, but man, it is a population that they can do anything. They can do so much. They have so much inside of them, but they do need guidance. They need help. They need guidance. And I think, the work that you're doing is amazing. So thank you for sharing that story.
Well, and you are right. You are spot on. At that age, that particular point in life, if there aren't other adults besides you, I have 2 teenagers. I love them fiercely. I want the best for them, but it's the other adults in their lives at that pivotal point. They're going to have the greatest impact on them because we have to hold only one of their hands when they reach adolescence. Before then, we're holding both tightly, but then we have to let go of one, and hopefully the world that they are living in holds it well, if you will. So there are guides, there are important mentors, and it's an honor to be a trusted adult in the life of a young person in very powerful ways. But I had someone hold my hand at a very important time and really kind of push me a direction I didn't expect or see for myself. And it was my youth minister at my church. I am a child of 4 as well. You have 4 children. I was a child of 4, and I was 3rd out of 4. And with that said, nobody in my family went to college except me. And it was my youth minister that saw purpose in me that I did not see in myself. And he actually called out leadership in me, called out integrity in me. He actually put me on a Greyhound bus to visit a college. Wow. And had a vision for me that I didn't embody for myself, or my parents didn't have that vision as well. So I'm grateful that I bumped into someone that began a narrative that made me want to become in ways that I didn't have the capacity to understand without his guidance. And so he did. He put me on this crazy Greyhound bus, and I headed to Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, where they had a youth ministries major. And I specialized in adolescence and advocacy and empowerment. And with that said, if it wasn't for his persistence in my life, his vision for what I could be, him guiding me towards that, I truly would not be here in Bryn Mawr doing the work, the honorable and amazing gift I have been given to serve in this community for over 20 years. And it's because he saw something in me that I did not see in myself.
Yeah, and that's amazing because that just really speaks to the power of a mentor. And like you said, as parents, we support our kids and we're there for our kids and we encourage them and we hold their hands, as you said. But it really is the people that, and of course they're receptive to it to a certain extent, right? But it's the people sometimes outside, the coaches, the teachers, the people that they're exposed to. Sometimes, I can even see it in my kids. If they get a compliment or like something that's truly meaningful from a coach or a teacher, even if it's an email from a teacher about a test or something, it really impacts them. They take it really seriously. So to have that at such a young age, someone who is really there guiding you, mentoring you, holding your hand and supporting you and helping to bring out your strengths, outside of your parents, I think that's such a gift. It's such a gift to have, and it's such a gift that we as adults now can give to teenagers.
Right on. Right on.
It's so great. So you went to college.
I went to college in St. Augustine at Flagler College, and from there I worked in Jacksonville, Florida for about 6 years in a church, being a youth minister. And then I had this disruptive, unbelievable call to go to graduate school at Princeton, and I attended Princeton Seminary, actually against my will, in the sense that I just didn't think I was smart enough, good enough, able enough. And I even questioned my acceptance when I got it. I actually
I love that.
No, the best part, my best day at Princeton was I got a note from admissions, and I literally did this. I packed my bags in my dorm room and decided that they'd made a mistake. And so I went to the dean's office, the admission dean's office, and even before he spoke, Dean Foose was his name, and even before he spoke, I said, Dean Foose, I know that it was a mistake. I want to edge off for you. I'm totally prepared to go home now. And he just had the biggest smile on his face. He goes, Maria, he goes, no, I wanted to meet the first person I admitted into Princeton. He was a brand new admissions dean. And literally, I was in such shock that I was absolutely admitted that I walked into that office trying to talk him out of being admitted to Princeton.
Wow, that is so funny.
Oh my gosh, it was a great entry. But my time at Princeton was really formative in the sense that I kind of learned who I was again and who I was not. And I asked those critical questions. And I'd done a lot of work in urban areas in my 3 years I was there, and served some very, very socioeconomically challenged populations, a lot of marginalized, unbelievable human beings that life had tripped them up in ways that were just paths that were very hard to walk. And I learned so much that I felt like my call coming out of Princeton was to serve those marginalized communities and communities that were navigating poverty in real and powerful ways. So with that said, how did Maria get to Bryn Mawr from that moment? Because I truly came, as I told you, kicking and screaming. And upon graduation from Princeton, Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church had a posting for a job, and I had no desire in the world to come to this community called the Main Line and serve at a suburban church deep in this community. But God smiled on me because we don't always get to choose our path. Sometimes our paths are chosen for us. And with that said, I interviewed at this church, and I came with the posture that I didn't want the job, which is absolutely the best way to approach things, because then you become very true to yourself in that moment, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Of course. Well, you're more relaxed. You say what you feel because you're not trying. You're not, oh my God, should I say this? Should I say that? What are they looking for? I got to be that person when you're interviewing. So if you don't really want it, then you're more likely to just be you.
And there I was, very Maria, buyer beware. But the most amazing thing is I didn't grow up in this area. So that term, the Main Line, was very intriguing to me because it was said over and over throughout this interview. So I went to Ludington Library during my interview, and I was really questioning whether this was the right place for me, because I had served in such socioeconomically poverty-filled areas that I was really struggling. And so at Ludington Library, I had the chance to grab a dictionary, something most people may not realize existed back then. But I took a book off a shelf and I looked up the term Main Line. And in this very moment, I felt like my call was realized, because the definition of Main Line in the dictionary, the first, definition was a train route. And here we are, we're in the Main Line, it's a train route. But the second definition is what stopped me and made me really pause in important ways. And the second term or definition for the word Main Line is it's a drug term. It's the quickest way to get the highest high. And I thought about that, and I thought about my interview, and I thought about my call to what I would define poverty to be at that point in my life. And it was an unsettling moment for me, and an unsettling week of unbelievable interviews at Bryn Mawr Presbyterian church that I realized that there is poverty, a different face to poverty here on the main line. And for me, this poverty of the soul, this need to fill us, up with the things that we'll never fill, led me to saying yes to Bryn Mawr Presbyterian Church and growing in extraordinary ways, serving this community and having the opportunities to be a part of amazing people, programs, and possibilities in those 7 years. And it was a pivotal moment in my journey.
Wow. That's really impactful in so many ways, just especially the fact that you felt reluctance is not really what you wanted, but you felt the calling and you knew what the calling was. And that takes a lot of courage to really follow it when deep down it's not really what you wanted or envisioned for your life. It was more of listening to the calling. And I just want to say that for those that are listening that are not familiar with the main line. So the main line of Philadelphia, it's outside of Philadelphia, it's a suburb, and it's traditionally known for being an affluent area of the country. So that's what Maria is speaking to, and it is because it's along the train route that ran outside of Philadelphia years ago. So I do think it's really amazing because even as a young person trying to figure out what their career is or what they want to do with their life, what their calling is, I think a lot of people experience maybe what they feel is their calling, and because of fear or other reasons, maybe it's family, other influences, listening to those around them, they don't follow that calling. But throughout your life you seem to really have this amazing ability to follow your calling. So you did once again, and you ended up at Bryn Mawr for how many years? Like 20 years?
I'd been in Bryn Mawr, the area, for 20 years, but I was at Bryn Mawr Presbyterian for 7 years.
For 7 years. And so I guess one of my questions is how do you explain just your ability to follow your calling?
I think that I have found a way to be uncomfortable in important ways, to live in tension, to think about possibility and have a posture of possibility, that I don't feel like, in a crazy way, I don't feel like I have arrived, that I always want to be open. And I think it's in those moments where we risk, when we are open, that our greatest version of ourselves happens. So with that said, all these moments of resisting, or being overwhelmed or being fearful, it started when I had cancer. I had no choice. I had to move forward. And I think having that at such a young age gave me resilience, gave me courage, gave me an idea that it's those moments where you lean into discomfort, that you become things that you never thought you could be or dreamed of being. So I just think it's acknowledging the tension and the discomfort and the fear, and then leaning in.
Yeah. I always say, for me, like, I'm scared of pretty much everything I do all the time, but I feel the fear and I do it anyway. And because one of the things I ask myself is, well, what's the worst that could happen? Right? There's always a way to change, or, if something's not working out, you can always pivot. You can change your lifestyle. You can do this, you can do that. But if you don't try and you just stay in your comfort zone, then you never really know. I love hearing that, because everybody has fear. I think some people that are fearful of making change or doing something different in their lives, they think, well, I'm not going to do it because I'm scared. And then they look at other people and say, I don't know how they do that. Well, everyone's scared. Everyone has fear. And it's just about recognizing that fear and doing it anyway, which is what you've done. So, okay. So you've had this wonderful experience at Bryn Mawr, and then I know you transitioned to Shipley, right? To a local school in leadership and service for them for a good amount of years. And then you just got another calling.
You're right. You are correct. I did. I definitely transitioned from Bryn Mawr Pres just because I wanted to have a family, and I knew that ministry was all consuming, and it was 7 days a week, and I was 11 retreats a year with kids, and I knew that if I wanted to be the best version of myself as a mom, I had to shift my chapter, if you will.
Sure.
And with that said, again, there was so much resistance from Bryn Mawr in my leaving, and I resisting that call and that shift in beautiful ways. It was the best of times and the worst of times, in the sense that when you really are willing to lean into this discomfort, it's going to ask things that you didn't know you could do or be. And so Shipley amazingly reached out to me, the headmaster at Shipley, and had this visionary moment. I've been gifted with visionaries in my life. And this Steve Pilch said, Maria, he goes, come to Shipley and tell us what you think you could offer us. And when do you get that opportunity in life? Where you get to bring you, your gifts, your limitations, your strengths, your weaknesses, all to the table. And I had the unbelievable opportunity to spend a week at Shipley just paying attention, looking at the community, looking at its strengths and challenges and ways that I could bring my strengths and weaknesses to that community. But mostly, hopefully, in a way that honored their mission and honored what I could give. And so I became a member and part of the the teachers there at Shipley for 18 years. And I worked with programs that enhanced their service learning, moved from a charity community service type model of reaching out to humanity to one that was deeply embedded in learning and service. And I had the unbelievable honor of growing and being shaped by those 18 years in extraordinary ways in that community. Shipley was very, very, very important to me in my growth. And then again, I had this undeniable unsettlement in my heart and soul that I just knew that it was time for me to grow in a different way.
I love that undeniable unsettlement. That is just such a wonderful way to describe sometimes, because I think a lot of people think like, oh, I feel stuck or I'm unhappy. I'm just whatever is going on in their life, they're not feeling it anymore. But that undeniable, it's just like unsettlement. You're just, that something's next for you. And so what, in that process, you feel that feeling. How do you explore that? How did you know? Because obviously I know the next step is the Impact Center, which is, this amazing organization. How did you get from that undeniable unsettlement feeling to creating this amazing idea and organization?
Well, I think I went from the posture, why it was a good transition process for me is I wanted to be talked out of it. I didn't go and this is a great idea, I'm going to do this. It was more from the posture of there's no way I should be leaving this comfortable job and it works for my life. I'm a parent, I've got 2 great kids at the school. It's my whole schedule. It works for me. Everything about it worked for me. And yet it wasn't working internally for me. So the uniqueness to this journey is I really wanted to be talked out of this unbelievable mission I had brewing in my heart of the Impact Center. And then I literally spent a year and a half seeking to not do it. And I went to, as I always have throughout my life, to mentors, people I trusted and entrusted, to people who were in the field that I was seeking to create for adolescents, but they worked with older populations like colleges. And I have this commitment, this wide awake belief that all of us have a value to add. All of us need to be changing this world in really important ways, and none of us get off the hook from that. And with that said, my population that I've always been passionate about serving and where my skills are best utilized are with young people, more specifically middle school and high school kids. So with that said, the journey started because I had an encounter with one of my children that disrupted me. Mm-hmm. And it was an important encounter because our children have a lot to teach us. We don't always want to be learners in those moments, but they have a lot to teach us. So my daughter, Madison, and my son before her, in the lower school at Shipley, they have this amazing project. It's called the Think, Care, and Act. And so my son, being 2 years older than my daughter, Josh went through this Think, Care, Act project in a stellar way. He had been volunteering at this amazing school called the Andrew Jackson School in South Philadelphia. He'd been there on a regular basis, but when he was there, he noticed that there were no art supplies on the shelves. And so with that said, when it came to his Think, Care, Act, he thought about it. He thought, it's not fair that I have art supplies filling my home and my world and my school, and why don't these kids have the same? So Josh dug deep in his agency and decided in 5th grade that he was going to write Crayola crowns and ask them to donate art supplies to the Andrew Jackson School. Unbelievable. They responded in amazing ways. And we delivered those art supplies, filled their shelves with all these ways to be creative and innovative. And Josh and I both smiled deeply that day. And I thought, well done, my son. I'm a better person for being around you. So then when Maddie, 2 years later, got to do her Think, Care, Act, I can remember pulling up because I knew the day that it was, because this is how weird I am. I knew the day that they were going to make the Think, Care, Act decision. And so Maddie got in the car, and so I said, Maddie, what are you thinking? And my daughter raises the bar for me in important ways, and says in 5th grade, Mommy, I've been thinking a lot about this. And I'm like, of course you have. You raise that awareness in me all the time that I need to think more before I respond. And she said, Mommy, I've decided I want to end homelessness.
I love that.
And there was this long pause in the car, because what do you say in that moment as a parent? Your daughter sincerely wants to end homelessness. And that is a huge, talk about calling, wish, thinking about. So I decided at that moment that I needed to find some way to respond that validated the same way my son, his agency, his carrying out this Think, Care, Act project. And so I took 2 days off from work. Maddie took 2 days off from school, and we thought and we cared and we acted on behalf of homelessness. And I learned more serving alongside my daughter in that moment. The question she asked, the mindset she had of possibility, of change, of how she could be a change agent when it came to this issue of homelessness, that I thought, why aren't people taking kids seriously? Why am I not taking my daughter seriously? What am I doing? She is one person, yes, but she is one person that can change this world.
Yeah.
So they're born the reality and the hope for the Impact Center.
Wow. I that's I love that. That's so inspiring because, and I think, what I love about that story is you didn't just think about it and like write it down and send a piece of paper in to school. Like you really talk about leaning in. You leaned in. You took off 2 days. She took off 2 days and you went for it. You experienced it. And she had real life experiences, as did you, to really know, what she was doing, what the population was, just to dive into it and experience it, not just write it down because it's a school project.
Right.
And I really applaud you for you as the parent taking the lead on that and saying, okay, let's take 2 days off. Let's really do this. Because, I'll to be honest, I don't know if as a parent, if I would even think to allow myself to do that, to go out of the box that far. But when you really think about it, like, why not? Why aren't we all doing something like that? Why isn't there mandatory service days with parents that, so I know, my children's school, they have service and they do service, but I don't know what they're doing. I don't get to see it. So I don't really get to experience it alongside them so that I can ask them more impactful questions that when they get home, I can really say, okay, let's talk about this. I asked them, how was it? What did you do? It's very different. It's very different than experiencing it alongside them, which I think is awesome.
Right. And there's not there. It is when you pay attention, when you expose yourself, when you lean in, you are forever changed. You are forever changed in that moment. So it was that singular moment with Maddie that said, where is a place that a person, a child, a youth like Maddie could be empowered, could be ignited, could be set on a trajectory that in 5th grade, here is a child who wants to end homelessness and who is listening to her.
Yeah.
Who is taking her voice seriously. And if someone did take her voice seriously, what could a child, any child, Maddie's not special. I do believe every single child wants to shift or change something about this world that they have noticed, but nobody is paying enough attention to their singular purpose and passion and then giving them a place to kind of sort that out, to connect deeper. And so with that said, that wonderful disruptive moment with my daughter made me think there's no center, there's no place I can take her so that in 7th grade, this passion for homelessness can look like this. In 9th grade, in her 11th grade year, in her choice of vocation and calling, what if someone took her seriously? And so I gathered a group of educators who, three other, really 4 in total, other women who I deeply respected. And I said, I need to sit down with you. I need to run an idea by you. And again, that posture of tell me I'm wrong. Tell me this is ridiculous. Tell me this is so out of the box, crazy. And I sat down with these 4 individuals who I deeply, deeply respect in hopes to be talked out of it. But all 4 of them not only thought it was something our world needed in vital ways, all 4 of them wanted to be a part of it, wanted to leave these amazing careers that they had at that time and lean in so deeply to this mission that has become the Impact Center. But if it wasn't for those 4 women, the Impact Center, it's not Maria, it's a team of human beings, humanitarians, really critical thinkers that said, we need to take the voice and value and purpose of youth and put it into action.
Yeah. So that's exactly what you did. And I love that when you asked the question, who is going to take her seriously? You did. You took her very seriously. And here is the Impact Center. So tell our listeners what the Impact Center does, because I know even for my kids, especially at a younger age, my husband and I always talked about, while they get some opportunities for service in school, it is still very limited. And now that they're a little bit older, they might have more options, but younger kids, there's not many opportunities for them to actually do service and be in the service and see what they're doing. Yes, they can make a casserole and that's going to be sent to an organization. But they don't get to see where it's going. They don't get to meet the people and that sort of thing. So explain to our listeners exactly what the Impact Center is.
Well, I'll happily explain what the Impact Center is. We are and are always becoming. And with that said, the best and tightest way I can describe us is that we are a adolescent citizenship fostering hub located in Haverford. We are a place where our youngest of citizens can come and join this journey of compassion and empowerment and learning, and find their agency and their purpose, and wonderfully so, with over 63 nonprofits that have said yes to the Impact Center's mission of educating deeply these young citizens before they ever go and volunteer on the work, the mission, and the complexities that these nonprofits are navigating. And then to lean into those experiences, to what you said, Chrissy, in the sense that, young kids don't get the opportunity, to have direct service. Much of their service is indirect. But wonderfully so, nonprofits that used to just say yes to 16 to 18-year-olds are now saying yes to as young as 10 with the Impact Center, because of the integrity we seek to have in uplifting their mission with dignity and humility and responsibility. We want them to have a posture of learning and understanding and challenging some of their ignorances and biases before they ever walk in the door of these nonprofits. And it's working. It's working in beautiful ways, because these kids are going in more ready to grow and learn and lean in. And then the difference, we had called it our secret sauce. We immerse in, deep understanding and education. We involve in the organization, the nonprofit's mission and purpose and critical way that they are changing this world. And then we ignite through reflection after a service experience. So we immerse, involve, ignite. And in those reflections, we ask some critical questions like, what surprised you? What questions do you still have? What ignorances or biases or assumptions were challenged in your time volunteering? And then what do you want to do with what you've seen and experienced? What's next? Because what service sometimes becomes is checking the box.
Yeah.
An episodic moment where I'm getting credit for what I do and not giving value. The posture of you are the learner, you are the receiver, is a big shift when it comes to a model of service, and we are seeking to shift the model to one where you're the one that's going to walk away better from that opportunity to lean into humanity or this earth and animal in a different way.
Yeah, and that really takes it from a situation or a position of, like you said, just checking the box, to really being grateful for that experience. And truly, I love the follow through that the Impact Center does in making everyone think about the experience afterwards, because, yes, and anyone, a child or an adult, can do a service experience, but then sometimes afterwards, that's just what it was. It was, a time that you were there, and then you move on to the next thing the next day without truly reflecting and thinking about, what it meant to you, and really experiencing the gratefulness and the gratitude for having that experience, and then what's next. And I think that's a huge part of service that is missing in many other areas that the Impact Center is doing.
Yeah, we are a group of committed educators that honor these nonprofits in all the ways that we can, or seeking to honor it. And another beautiful thing I met, and this is the best part about us, in my opinion, is we have this amazing youth advisory board that's made up of middle school students and high school students from 15 public and private schools that have vetted these nonprofits, who have volunteered first and said, what was a good experience? What are ways they wish they had learned? Should they've learned before they had done it? So we believe youth have more wisdom than we do, and we want their valued opinions. And so this youth advisory board meets monthly to evaluate our programs, to help us write our curriculum, to make us relevant and give us voice. And if it wasn't for them, we would not be who we are today. So for me, it's that group of youth and all the youth that come to these experiences and ask these questions. So when we ask them, what questions do you have? I want to be able to answer those questions, in time. So we are always growing, always evolving, always wanting to be challenged as adults and students, by all these partnerships and unbelievable nonprofit experiences that we are offering.
Well, you are truly revolutionizing service and impacting not only the organizations, the 63 organizations that are a part or partners with the Impact Center, but now, it's truly impacting everyone who is in service as well. So, Maria, I want to thank you so much for being here today, because I don't know about my listeners, but I am so excited to get involved with the Impact Center, to join as a family with my kids and my husband, and to be able to experience, something that is impactful to us, as far as, because there's so many areas of service that you offer. It's like whatever anyone is interested in or feels the calling to help, the Impact Center has that. So I know I am personally really excited to get involved on a much deeper level with the Impact Center. And a big part of that, I know it's a wonderful group of people that are doing all of the great work that the Impact Center is doing. But I also know that every time I am in your presence, I do feel elevated and inspired and energized to get my ass in gear and do more good for this world, because that is truly, what you inspire. So thank you very much for doing this today, for being here, for sharing your path, and for telling us all about the Impact Center and following your calling to create it. Because as anyone knows who starts a business or a nonprofit or anything, who builds anything in this world, it is not easy. So thank you for following your calling and doing that.
Well, it's my honor. And thank you, Chrissy, for being wonderful you as well, and such a warrior, and empowering your listeners to be the best version of themselves too.
Oh, thank you. So I just want to make sure our listeners know where they can find you. So your website for the Impact Center is ignitingpurpose.org. And of course, all of these, the links will all be in the show notes that they can see, but also they can follow you on Instagram at igniting.purpose. And of course, you're on Facebook as well, Igniting Purpose. And the Impact Center is on Facebook. So thank you, everyone. Check out the Impact Center and how you can make a difference. And thank you once again for joining us on Suburban Warrior. We will see you next time.